On this episode, I'm joined by my friends Lucie and Gary to battle Walt Disney World versus Disneyland Resort in a variety of categories. Today is August 8th, 2023. This is episode 589 of the Main Street Magic Podcast.
Jeremy and Rhonda are more than a little fond of Disney World, so they made this podcast to share it all with you. Reports and resorts, top 10 lists of all sorts. Main Street Magic's bringing it home for you.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Main Street Magic. I'm your host, Jeremy Stein, and while Rhonda is not with me tonight, I will be soon joined by my very good friends, Lucie and Caleb, to talk Disney World and Disneyland. Make sure you check us out on the web at mainstmagic.com, as well as follow on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at mainstmagic. If you've not done so already, head out to Facebook and search for the Main Street Magic community and ask to join. Then you hit that subscribe button. You're going to get brand new episodes every Tuesday and Friday. Now, planning a trip and planning dining specifically at both Walt Disney World and Disneyland, which we will cover today, can be very overwhelming, at times just downright frustrating. But don't worry, because Mouse Dining removes the frustration of booking Disney dining reservations, alerting you when they spot availability for your desired restaurant, date, meal, and time. Visit msmfriends.com to use this free service. Thank you so much, Lucie and Gary, for joining me today for this fun conversation about Disney World versus Disneyland. So, guys, welcome both of you back to the Main Street Magic Podcast.
Absolutely. Happy to be here as always.
Thank you. Very excited to be back.
So what we're going to get into is we have several categories that we are going to pit up against Walt Disney World versus Disneyland in that specific category. Now, since I have not yet been to Disneyland, sadly, that is why I've brought you two on who have been. So first, Lucie, let's just start with you. I know you've been on the show several times. Many listeners know you, but just a little background of your Disney World versus how many times you've been to Disneyland, which, of course, includes a fairly recent trip.
Yes, so absolutely. I am born and raised in Florida, so Walt Disney World's my home park. My parents' first date was to Walt Disney World, so we have been a Disney family as long as I can remember. I don't even know how many times I have been, but it is definitely my favorite place in the whole wide world. So I do love Walt Disney World. I have had the opportunity to go to Disneyland twice now, both for 4 to 5 day trips, one last summer and one this past July. So I've been to both parks. I have not had an opportunity to stay at the Disneyland Resort yet, but I have been to 2 of the 3 Disneyland Resort hotels. Okay. So I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. And then Gary, a little bit of your background as far as it concerns Walt Disney World and Disneyland, because yours is a little more interesting because you're more dead center to get to either of the coasts to enjoy either sides of Disney pretty much.
That's right. That's one of the best things about living in Chicago is that it's a relatively short-ish trip, depending on which direction you want to go. Obviously, a little bit longer to go to the West Coast. My first ever Disney trip was a Disneyland trip for one day with my family in 1993 when we were doing kind of a big tour of California. And then my first trip to Disney World was in 2007. And then now I've actually been to both almost the exact same number of times. We just recently took our kids to Disneyland this past May, and I just got back from a work conference trip at Disney World for a few days last month. And so that now brings my Disney World trips to 11 and my Disneyland trips to 10.
Oh, wow.
So pretty dead center in the middle there.
Okay. Well, I think this will be super interesting, especially because you both have pretty recent trips to both Walt Disney World and Disneyland. So let's start off first with, we'll call resorts and hotels, because, and here's, I think will be the hard thing, and I'll be interested to hear some of your conversation, is the sheer size, of course. You know, that's why we're trying to look at very specific topics and categories as opposed to size or what there is to do, or, for example, amount of Disney-owned resorts. So we have very few over in Disneyland. We have quite many over here in Disney World. But overall, whether you stayed at them or not, what do you feel is the overall comparison from theming to quality, just from visiting some of the Disneyland hotels to Walt Disney World? And if we want, we'll do a ladies first for each of these, just to make it a little simpler since we're all on Zoom together. So we will start with Lucie and her opinion. And then, yeah, in the end, we're basically going to assign a point to each of these categories and we'll see who comes out on top according to you two. So what do you think, Lucy, as far as overall Disney resorts? And then if you want, we can even talk, off property resorts, since I know that's where
Okay.
people tend to stay more at Disneyland. How do those compare to the off property at Walt Disney World? So we'll assign a point to each of those for this round.
Okay. So, like I said, I have not stayed on property at the Disneyland Resort yet, but I have been to the Disneyland Hotel and I have been to the Grand Californian. I have not been to Paradise Pier. It's been under renovation when I've been. I've heard good things about it. We just haven't had a chance to go yet. I will say that for accessibility, the fact that the Grand Californian, you can walk directly into California Adventure is pretty awesome. Like, that's a very, very big perk that we don't have in Walt Disney World. There are no resorts that are close enough to be able to literally walk right into a park. I mean, you're getting close with the Grand Floridian and the Contemporary, but and beach and yacht and boardwalk. But I mean, you literally walk into the park from the Grand Californian, and that's really cool. I would say for on-property resorts, I would probably go with Walt Disney World for the sheer variety.
Okay.
The Disneyland hotels are wonderfully themed. I sent you some pictures, Jeremy, of the Grand Californian when we were there. It's stunning.
Yeah.
I would really, really love to stay there someday. But the Disneyland Hotel is themed kind of similarly to the Contemporary. And while the theming on all of the resorts is really beautiful, I just think Disney World takes the cake because you have such a wide variety and you have such a wide price range. I know we talk about a lot how the Disney World hotels have just increased in price and they keep going up, but you can still find pretty good deals. If you want to stay at a value resort, you can still find pretty good deals and stay on property.
Yeah.
I will say from my experience talking about off-property hotels, we have some really good ones that we stay at when we go to Walt Disney World. We've got our standbys. The Flamingo Crossing area, I know you guys have reviewed several times, is a really wonderful option. My husband Caleb and I have been staying at the Wyndham Lake Buena Vista quite frequently. We love the ease of accessibility to Disney Springs. That's a really great off-property option. But I will say, staying off-property at Disneyland is really convenient. And there's a huge concentration of hotels, also in various price ranges, that you can walk to the park from. My husband and my father-in-law and I just went in July. We stayed at a Home 2 Suites, and it was about a 16-minute walk from the hotel to security.
Wow.
So that's just not really something that you find in Walt Disney World. You are not going to find an off-property hotel that you can walk to a park.
Right.
Disney Springs, yes, but not to a park. So in that regard, I would probably say Disneyland has the advantage as far as off-property hotels and ease of accessibility.
Okay. What are your thoughts, Gary? Similar?
That's
And we'll assign a point
similar.
for each is the thing. So like technically, if you both pick Walt Disney World for resorts, that's 2 points for Disney World is the way we'll do. So all the points matter.
Okay. Okay. Lucy hit it perfectly. For sheer volume, for the theming, for the variety, for everything. Look, Skyliner, right? Like all these different things that you've got at Walt Disney World hotels. It's unparalleled, right? But I will say that the Grand Californian, absolutely just stunning. It really very, very similar vibes to your Wilderness Lodge kind of feel in a way. And that entrance right into DCA is just perfect. And at times they actually truly make it a dedicated entrance just for DCA and for Californian guests, Grand Californian guests.
Oh, wow.
Sometimes you can walk through, like it's kind of like a little cheat through, and then sometimes they're like, nope, sorry. Because I've used that entrance numerous times. I've never stayed at the Grand Californian. But then they'll also say, like, sometimes they're like, nope, sorry, Grand Californian guests only. And then, the other thing is the Grand Californian spills right out into downtown Disney, right? And, Pixar Pier Hotel is a little bit further away, and then Disneyland Hotel is at the end of downtown Disney. And so really that's where their hotels are all concentrated. The Disneyland Hotel, of course, is the OG. And so you've got to kind of give it some respect for that. That's where Trader Sam's is located in California. Some great character meals. The pool there is one of my favorite Disney pools anywhere. They've got a great monorail slide where you literally like slide through a monorail
Oh,
as
wow,
if you
that's
went from
awesome.
like tail to nose into the pool, which is kind of cool. And then they have the old Disneyland marquee at the top of the tower. Um, they've done some adjustments to the Disneyland Hotel cosmetically recently that I'm not super fond of, and including the new DVC tower. But overall, I do love the off-property resorts. I told you I've been to Disneyland 10 times. I've actually never stayed on property.
Wow. Yeah.
And at any of the three hotels, because the other thing that I feel, to be honest, is that the what you get for on-property perks for the upcharge that you pay for staying on property, other than unless you've got a theme park view and that Grand Californian entrance, really not that worth it to me. Especially because a lot of times a lot of the hotels on Harbor Boulevard, which is the eastern boundary and really the where you go for the main entrance of Disneyland, those hotels, a lot of them are good neighbor hotels. So they'll have some of the same perks. They might do stay 3 nights, get a fourth night free, or lots of other promotions that they run all the time. And then because they're all brand hotels, if you have rewards points, that's a huge chunk that like Marriott points, Hilton points, et cetera, et cetera. And then a lot of the hotels have free breakfast and all these other perks. And then you literally, like Lucy said, you've got a 10-minute walk to your park. I remember at one visit we were staying just down the street, and we were in front of Sleeping Beauty Castle, and we realized that we didn't have the batteries for our camera. And I left the park, went to the hotel, went back to the park through security, through the gate, and I was back in front of Sleeping Beauty Castle in 25 minutes.
That's incredible.
It was like absurd, you know. And so, and definitely there are ranges of prices on the off-property hotels too, but none of them are really, super, super duper exorbitant. And then the ones that are further away all have shuttles, and their shuttles will drop you off basically where the main Anaheim city buses drop you off too, and the parking lot shuttles. Like they all kind of use the same drop off. So it's not like TTC getting dropped off, by the Wyndham buses. And so I do think, I still think I'm going to give the nod to Walt Disney World, but it's not because Disneyland doesn't have really, really good options.
Right. But you're definitely going off property with Disneyland as well.
I tell everybody, unless you really want to
Yeah.
splurge and do that like once in a lifetime bucket list thing, I tell everybody stay off property.
Okay. That's very, very fair. All right. We're going to move on next to dining, and we'll cover 3 topics with dining. Overall, comparing just, what you think from meals you've had there. We'll start with table service, quick service, and we'll do snacks. So, we'll start with table service and the overall table service experiences, quality options. Again, we know that Walt Disney World is going to trump in overall options, but we really want to nail down, I guess, some of the top spots to sit down and have a table service meal as they compare to Disney World and Disneyland.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right, so I've had several sit-down meals at Disneyland. We've done a character breakfast at Goofy's Kitchen. This last trip we did sit-down dinners at both the Craftsman Bar and Grill at the Grand Californian and at Blue Bayou. I'm trying to think what else. I think those are I've eaten at Tortilla Joe's. I've eaten at Ballast Point Brewery. Those are both in downtown Disney. I've eaten at Splitsville in downtown Disney also. I think I can say with confidence that Blue Bayou is my favorite in-park restaurant at either park.
Okay.
Just the ambiance of it. For anyone who's not familiar, the Pirates of the Caribbean ride at Disneyland is it's located in New Orleans Square. So part of the ride is like you're going through the swamp or the bayou, and Blue Bayou looks out over Pirates of the Caribbean. So literally like the boats of guests are floating past while you're eating, and it's themed like you're in a courtyard in New Orleans looking out over the bayou.
Wow.
The food was fantastic. Like I said, the ambiance was cool. Even little touches like our menus had lights built into them. because it was darker in there, so you didn't have to squint, like just little things like that. I can say with confidence that's my favorite in park sit down meal I've ever had. That restaurant blew me away. It was wonderful.
Okay. So would you give a nod then overall to Disneyland for table service dining?
I would. It's so hard to take variety like off the
Yeah,
table.
I know.
Like pure variety, it would be really hard for me not to give it to Walt Disney World just because there's so many wonderful sit down restaurants. I would probably still give the point to Walt Disney World because I think you can get some fantastic in park table service, but the resorts are serving up some of the best food anywhere.
Yeah.
Like it's not good for theme park food, it's just really wonderful food.
Yeah.
So I would probably still give a nod to Walt Disney World, but I just have to shout out Blue Bayou because it was fantastic.
No, that's fair. Gary, what do you think about table service as far as the two compare, and what is your table service experience on both coasts?
The variety that you can get and I agree completely. Like there are some really good in park places. I just ate at Skipper Canteen for the first time on this past trip, and some Hollywood Brown Derby, right? And then a bunch of the Epcot restaurants. I will tell you though, for atmosphere and ambiance combined with food, for me, the in park and some of the other high quality dining sit down restaurants at Disneyland are exemplary. Blue Bayou, absolutely. I actually have to go back now with the lit menus because the last time I was there, my getting older eyes couldn't, I had my phone out and using, so I have to go back for the lit menu. You've got Lamplight Lounge, which is entirely themed to Pixar. And so you walk in and there's a wall of Pixar balls and quotes from all the Pixar movies and concept art and stuff like that all over the restaurant. And then you can sit out on the patio on the lower level, and it literally juts out into the lagoon that World of Color is shown in. And so you can sit waterside basically and watch the World of Color show. You've got Carthay Circle, which is the in park at California Adventure, kind of the premier in park restaurant there. They have a balcony on the top floor that if you sit there, you actually look out, you face north. And so you face the entrance of California Adventure, the Esplanade, and Disneyland in the distance, which is such a cool vista. Grand California Napa Rose is actually still to this day. We did the chef's table or the chef's counter at Napa Rose, and it's the best meal of my life.
Jeez.
And so I have to give the sit down dining nod to Disneyland.
Okay.
I would say.
Nice. All right. We've got a split one on there. Let's move to quick service. And this one I'm actually really interested to hear about because of all the wonderful things I see at Disneyland on social media, as far as especially quick service and snacks. From never even being there, it seems to trump what Disney World's doing in many aspects. Would you agree, Lucy, or what is your experience with quick service?
Yeah, I would say I can roll quick service and snacks both into one because I would give
Okay.
both of them to Disneyland.
All right.
I don't even really know that it's a contest, unfortunately.
Yeah.
The only thing I can think that Walt Disney World is doing that's even slightly similar is festivals for Epcot. But even then, I haven't had a chance to experience it. But California Adventure does festivals.
Yeah.
So I haven't gone, but they do festivals. And actually, California Adventure does festivals, and they do festival passes, which we don't really do, where you can kind of like they do for Mardi Gras at Universal, where you can buy your lanyard that comes with your like pre-purchase number of items, which
Right.
is really cool. Yeah, the quick service options again are very unique at Disneyland. You can find your standard theme park food, but I was really impressed with the variety of things that you can find. We spent a lot of time in Avengers Campus, and the Pim's Test Kitchen has great options. The first time we went, we got breakfast shawarma, and now I like dream about it. It's one of my favorite quick service meals I've ever had. It's so good. We couldn't wait to get one this last time when we went back. We tried some snacks. They had some special things for Rogers the Musical that were seasonal, that were all fantastic. So just the variety that they are theming things to. And just as another kind of caveat that's kind of unrelated but is related, Disneyland also is very mobile order heavy, which I know Walt Disney World it's offered in a lot of places. It's really preferred at most venues in Disneyland. And as a fairly tech savvy person, that's not an issue for me. So I prefer that. I like that I can kind of plan out my day and know when I'm going to be able to pick up my food, and I know that it's going to be ready and I'm not going to have to wait in a line. And I like that ease. Again, ease of accessibility is a big one for us. So I would say quick service and snacks, I would give both to Disneyland.
Okay. Gary is shaking his head, I believe, in agreement. So you agreeing with both of those?
I will. I will say the only thing I feel about Disneyland. So Disneyland has my favorite Disney snack anywhere. It's the churro toffee, which is just like I dream of that. I've made it at home. It's I mean, just a beautiful square of toffee, like maybe like 2.5 inches by 2.5 inches, dunked in white chocolate and then tossed in cinnamon sugar, and it's just wow. Um, the one thing I will say is I think that Disneyland gets a lot of those, local influencers and bloggers and stuff and so there are a lot of Disneyland snacks that kind of have this like, I don't know, not really a cult following, but just like oh my gosh, like the 10 snacks you have to have at Disneyland. And maybe like half of them like are okay, but still I think like those iconic snacks are just outpacing what they're doing at Walt Disney World. And then the quick service, what really sells it for me is how well they do with the theming of the like how Lucy was mentioning the shawarma in Avengers Campus, right? And they're like what would we have if we were in this universe?
Yeah.
Right. And then like in Cars Land, you've got Flo's, which is in the movie where the cars go for their fuel, right? And it's the quick service restaurant in Cars Land. And then you've got the Cozy Cone, which each cone has a different, like one cone is ice cream, one cone is literally bread cones that you can get like mac and cheese and walking tacos in and stuff like that. And so just kind of how they do that. And then over on Disneyland, some of the quick service that they do there. And of course, Jeremy, we've got, back to table service, we've got Tiana's Palace about to open.
Oh, I know. It's not even fair.
And so that's gonna tip the scales more too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think overall food, I give it to the West Coast.
Okay. Yeah. I don't think that one was surprising for me, even not having been there. We're going to move on to one real quick.
Wait.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have one thing because I saw that we did talk about drinks.
Yeah, that's what I was going to move on to. Because
I'm sorry that you're going to go to
well, no, and this is a great one that Lucy brought up, Gary. And here's what I'm interested to hear is because not just in Epcot in Disney World, but I do think that there is a drinking and alcoholic beverage culture that has been built within Walt Disney World, even outside of Epcot with a lot of the bars and lounges. We see specialty drinks all the time around every single film that comes out now, whether it's in theaters or on Disney Plus. Is there a similar culture over on the West Coast? And if so, how are they doing their drinks? Like if you were saying, I want to go get some of the best or, best themed alcoholic beverages, which coast are you going to?
I would pick East Coast.
Okay.
I would pick East Coast.
I will say when we were there, we did go to Trader Sam's at the Disneyland Hotel, and they did have a off-menu cocktail called the Life in Plastic. That was Barbie pink. That was awesome. So that was just kind of cool little nod to something that was, not even Disney. That's not even a Disney film, but that was, of the times. And Lamplight Lounge does some really excellent themed craft cocktails. That for the most part, they're not batch. They're making them to order right in front of you. And there's really cool ones like the Scream Canister and the Fun Wheel and things like that. But just access to alcohol in general is significantly different in Disneyland.
Yeah.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. California Adventure, there are, places that you can get a drink, but it's very different from in every park except Magic Kingdom. In Walt Disney World, there are full bars that you can walk up to.
Mm-hmm.
Every single park has a full bar that I can walk up to and say, I want a vodka soda, or I would like a margarita, or something like that. And In California Adventure, the only one I can think of is the outside bar at Lamplight Lounge,
Right.
and everywhere else is pretty much pre-mixed cocktails or beer. And there's good options and tasty things that you can get, but it's just not quite the same as Walt Disney World. So it's just something to be aware of. Now, downtown Disney is close enough. You can walk out and get a drink there. And I know Kat and Michael have talked about that. That's something that they will do for like a midday break, but it's different. Do you agree, Gary?
I do. The only other place I would add with a pretty decent bar menu is Carthay Circle. But outside of that, yeah, I think the just what Jeremy, you're absolutely right. Walt Disney World has really leaned into that part of the zeitgeist. And to be honest, one of the non-alcoholic beverages that everybody kind of talks about, this is kind of what I was getting to before with the things that kind of you see all over social media and then you go and try it. The mint julep in New Orleans Square at the mint julep bar, for me is just not good. Very scopy. It looks like scope, it tastes like scope. And it's just very, very artificial mint flavor.
Yeah.
And so, and then they throw a glow cube in it or something. And so I think that Walt Disney World just far just knocks it out of the park. I mean, some of the great drinks at the hotel bars and lounges and everything. Just the bar and lounge scene at Walt Disney World you can't beat it.
Yeah.
I will say one slight plug because I did have when we were in California Adventure, and I think it was my favorite cocktail I had on this trip. They're doing a new espresso martini with cereal milk at Pim's Tasting Lab, and it was fantastic.
That'd be right up Rhonda's alley there.
It was so good. I know we were sitting in Avengers Campus, just watching the Avengers just walk around and patrol, and I was drinking it, and I was missing you guys. It was really, really good.
I'll tell you what. I've actually had some of the mixed drinks at Pim's Tasting Lab are really, really good. But they also, one of their gimmicks is that they have 4 beers on tap, that they have these special cups and a special dispenser where they put the cup on the dispenser and the beer actually fills the cup from the bottom up.
Yeah, those are cool.
And I was like, oh, I just want to get one of these beers because I want them to fill my cup this way. And I regretted that decision. I was like, I was walking through California Adventure. I was like, this beer is not good. I should have gotten something else.
Well, you guys both have mentioned, of course, downtown Disney. I'm adding this to the list that I had sent you, but let's talk real quick of a comparison and who is better on coast-wise, downtown Disney or Disney Springs.
I mean, Caleb likes to make fun of me because I don't consider myself to be a person who's wrong super often, but I'm really great at admitting when I'm wrong. And I was one of those people that when they were rebranding Disney Springs thought it was stupid.
Yeah.
Like I was very much a purist. It's like, this is dumb. Like everything they're doing, this is dumb. And he loves to point out to me how wrong I was because Disney Springs is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Disney Springs is fantastic. Downtown Disney is honestly bigger than I thought. Like when I went, I remember thinking like, oh, there's actually more here than I thought there was. There's quite a bit of construction right now. So that's not super convenient. You kind of have to walk in and around some things. It's nice. I think it's an appropriate size for how much smaller the Disneyland Resort is. But yeah, you got to give it to Disney Springs.
Okay. You agree, Gary?
100%. Downtown Disney actually feels a lot like Universal City Walk.
Okay.
It kind of has a very similar vibe to that way, whereas Disney Springs, I feel like, is like a fifth gate. Like it's the other thing with downtown Disney, and it's great. Like it's a cool place. You can get out of the park for a while. It's easy enough to get there if you want a different lunch option. You don't really have to feel like you're leaving the parks. You can hop out, hop back in. The other nice thing is it's within the security bubble. So you can leave Disneyland, go to California Adventure or downtown Disney, and you never have to leave, like come back in through security, which is kind of nice.
Yeah.
But also downtown Disney, the reason I say it feels kind of like City Walk is there are a lot of, not that Disney Springs doesn't have a fair number of chains, but a lot of other unique places and celebrity places and stuff that, whereas like downtown Disney, it's got a Ballast Point Brewery, which is a really cool place to eat. and a lot of other like California kind of franchises rather than like, oh, this is a cool like Disney spot, you
Okay.
know? So yeah, Disney Springs. And I was just commenting to someone after my recent trip. I said, every time because I was always like, why am I going to go to Disney Springs or downtown Disney when it was that? I was like, I'm coming to Disney World, I'm going to the park, I'm going to like the restaurants, the hotels. Like, I don't need to leave and go to downtown Disney or Disney Springs. And then like the first time I went to Disney Springs, I was like, oh, this is pretty good,
Yeah.
And now like every time I go there, I like it more.
Yeah. Oh
Like
yeah.
I'm no, it's a really cool spot.
Yeah. It's a must go for us now. I mean, whether it's going to Gideon's or going to World of Disney or, getting something to eat or drink. Yeah. Disney Springs, I know for us, works into our Disney World plans almost every time. We're going to move into the parks, and I'm going to throw another one at you that wasn't on the list, but let's go ahead and vote for your castle.
All right. You can address your hate mail to Jeremy at mainstreetmagic.com. She's real cute, guys, but Sleeping Beauty Castle is so small.
Yeah.
It is, honestly, that was the only thing, and I dreamt of going to Disneyland my entire life. That was the only thing that was slightly underwhelming for me about Disneyland it's tiny. It's just not what I was used to for a park icon. So yeah, I'm gonna give it to Cinderella Castle every single time.
Okay. You agree, Gary?
If your castle that you know from childhood and growing up and whatever, Cake Castle 25, whatever else if your castle is Cinderella Castle, when you go to Disneyland, you were like, what is that? Like, what is that? The only thing I will say that I could even maybe make an argument for is that there is an attraction inside the castle.
Yeah.
It's the Sleeping Beauty walkthrough. And they still decorate it for Christmas. Hashtag bring back Dreamlights.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise, yeah, it doesn't compare. I mean, spoiler alert, I love Disneyland more than anything. I cry when I see Cinderella Castle. Like, yeah. I legit, like, there are times where I've been in that park and seeing it for different reasons. The different times I've been there has made me cry. And that has not, other than the fact that I cried after I proposed to my wife in front of Sleeping Beauty Castle. So I kind of actually probably have to say
wow, and it
that
still doesn't get the nod.
I probably have to say that.
Yep.
But that's the only time I've cried in front of Sleeping Beauty Castle.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, wow. All right. This is so right now, actually, Walt Disney World has a slight lead. And that was me throwing the castle in there. But I think this could potentially be where Disneyland starts to take over, because we're not just going to talk attractions overall. We are going to go ahead and pit either very like or basically the same attractions against each other. So we have a list, and I'm going to start with the ones that aren't exactly the same, but they kind of are. We're going to start with Indiana Jones Adventure versus Dinosaur. Same ride system, same ride through, completely different theming though. I could probably answer for both of you and anybody else. I can answer for myself, and I've never ridden Indiana Jones, but let's talk Indiana Jones versus Dinosaur and who gets the win.
So Dinosaur terrifies me. So I just want to put that out there. When we did the Main Street 16 ride challenge, my head is like buried in Rhonda's lap because I am so scared, and I had to do it because of the ride challenge.
Yeah.
So when we rode Indiana Jones, there were times when I closed my eyes because I wasn't quite sure about it. It's awesome. It's so fun. For me, it's better than Dinosaur.
Yeah.
It's amazing how you can have two rides with literally the exact same track and the exact same vehicle. Like, the blueprints of the rides are the same. And you just put a different skin on the two rides, and one ride is so good and one ride is so bad. It's Indiana Jones all the way. It actually, and now they can program the cars, right, to shift and go in different directions and whatever. But just the ride, for some reason, just feels jerkier. It feels more violent, aggressive. I just don't feel good when I come off of that ride. And then the terrifying aspect of it all too. And then Indiana Jones, just like, you got the soundtrack going, you've got the big room that you go through like a couple of different times, the way the track weaves through it, just brilliant. Like, well done.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna move on to Radiator Springs versus Test Track, which again I don't think is a real contest, but we're trying to help Disneyland out here a little bit.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Radiator Springs Racers. I think it is for me, and again, I'm not a huge roller coaster person, but other than Cosmic Rewind, I think this is my favorite Disney attraction.
Oh, wow.
I love I love Radiator Springs Racers. I think it's a perfect ride. I wouldn't change a single thing about it.
Wow. Okay.
Test Track is my favorite ride at Epcot, and it's not a contest. Radiator Springs Racers, absolutely. It's Radiator Springs Racers is my favorite ride at DCA, um, and it's just yeah, it's perfection.
Oh,
Absolutely.
I got to get out there. All right, we're gonna pit Nemo against Nemo. And we're gonna do the Seas with Nemo and Friends versus the Finding Nemo submarine voyage, which is over in Disneyland. First, tell me a little bit about that ride because I actually know very little about it. The submarine ride over there is this an old nod to 20,000 Leagues? Is it that similar type of system?
Mm-hmm. It's the
It
same.
is,
Okay.
yeah, it's the same system. I will say I have not done the submarine voyage, but that's because I'm a little claustrophobic.
Okay.
So I would give this one to the Seas with Nemo and Friends because I love that ride. And I also think that the Seas is a very underrated part of Epcot.
Yeah.
That is one of my
Mhm.
favorite places to take an inside AC break.
Yep.
You can watch the dolphins play. Like there are
Mhm.
some really fun,
Yep.
fun things that you can do in the Seas Pavilion. So I would pick the Seas with Nemo and Friends.
Okay. Gary?
Yeah, you have the aquarium in the seas. You've got just that really kind of cool area. The ride for me is just it's so short and but it's cute and it's so quaint and the queue is so cool. Whereas the queue for the Nemo sub, you're just basically standing in Tomorrowland on a switchback underneath the monorail track. The ride system and the concept of it is so cool. Going down into the sub, you are you're shoulder to shoulder with the person next to you. You have to kind of crouch down to lean through this little porthole
No.
right in front of you. And the scenes are really, but it then you're actually kind of like you feel like you're in there for like 5 minutes too long. You feel like the air is getting kind of stale,
Okay.
and because of the ride mechanism, it loads so slowly. Like it just slogs through the queue. Um, So I gotta actually give this one. I thought I was gonna give this one to Disneyland, and then when I thought about it more, Disney World takes
All
it.
right. Okay. Well, we're going to do a couple kind of quick ones real quick. I'll just cover all three because I know they are very, very similar. And they're kind of, I don't want to say throwaway rides. That's probably rude. But we got Teacups, Astro Orbiter, and Dumbo. Are there many differences between these on each coast? And if you had to pick for each of those three, which coast are you picking based on everything around it?
I would pick Teacups at Disneyland just because I like the canopy better.
Okay.
It's very like Alice's Garden rather than just kind of the big dome that we have on ours.
Mhm.
But Astro Orbiter and Dumbo are pretty much identical, so I'll
Mhm.
just pick Walt Disney World because they're basically the same.
Okay. What do you think, Gary?
Yeah, Disneyland with the natural tree kind of canopy, absolutely. Like Lucy said, they've got these lanterns that hang from it. So
Mhm.
at night, it's just gorgeous. Um, and then, but Astro Orbiter, the biggest difference is that at Disneyland, Astro Orbiter is basically right at the front of Tomorrowland. So it's basically like the Tomorrowland sign, and right behind it is the Astro Orbiter, and it's on the ground. So it's basically another just spinner. Like, okay, cool. Versus of course the Florida one up in the air, right above everything. And then yeah, what was Dumbo? The only just a little play area at Disneyland or Disney World rather gives it to Florida, I'd say. So
Okay.
actually, yeah, I'd say Teacups Disneyland, and then the other two Disney World.
Perfect. All right. We are going to pit one of my favorite rides over in Walt Disney World, Midway Mania, versus Disneyland's version, Toy Story Mania.
So I'm gonna pick Walt Disney World again, and I'm gonna say I kind of think we should have like a bonus point that we decide just based on overall ride queues, because other than Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout, which has a very cool queue because you go through like the collector's collection, overwhelmingly the queues in Disneyland are outdoors.
Mm-hmm.
And overwhelmingly, like Carrie said, they are switchbacks in the sun with a little bit of shade. So the ride in Toy Story Mania versus Midway Mania are pretty much identical, but I think the queue of Midway Mania when you're a toy, you're in Andy's room, is really really cool.
Okay. All right. So Disney World gets the nod from Lucy.
Yeah. At Disneyland, you don't get that until you're like almost on the ride. And it actually, it's only because at one point your switchback goes inside the building and then comes back out of the building. And so for that little part, you're like, oh, cool, and you don't get that, even that load area that you have at Disney World, where it's like, we're in the playset, right? The only other cool part about Disneyland is that Mr. Potato Head is outside like a true barker,
Yeah.
like trying to get people in, versus the animatronic being inside at Disney World. But it essentially then once everything else is the same. So
Okay.
I would actually can I give half a point to each? Can I draw?
We can flip coins. I always have coins available now. So
there you go. There you go. No, I would actually say Disney World on this one.
Disney
This
World.
was funny.
Okay.
When I was making this list, I was like, this is actually really Disneyland heavy as far as, and now I'm like, oh.
Yeah. Well, but I think that's what's so neat about having the discussion too between the two of you is I know sometimes like you bounce things off of each other that maybe you didn't think of at first when you're looking at it, because it's so easy to look at a lot of things, especially when Rhonda and I do this all the time with these bracket challenges. Is if you just look at it and have a split-second decision, it's real easy. You start conversating about it and you're like, oh, this wasn't as easy as I thought, I'm kind of thinking something completely different.
Yeah.
So next we're going to move on to the mini adventures of Winnie the Pooh, West Coast versus East Coast.
So I have not ridden this ride in Disneyland, and I will tell you why. That is because the one in Walt Disney World makes me very motion sick.
I can see that.
So I guess I'll pick Walt Disney World because it's the only one that I've been on. But like I say, it makes me, especially when you get into like the Huffalumps and Woozles and like you start seeing all the lines and the swirls and stuff. It's a little much for me.
Yeah. Now, are they very comparable from queue to ride, Gary, as far as Disneyland's versus Walt Disney World's go? How similar are these two, especially when it comes to queue, as you're talking about being in the sun mostly?
One of the biggest things is that actually this one is where even having the outdoor queue actually does help a little bit in the West Coast version because of its placement. So, in Disney World, it's in Fantasyland. It took over the spot formerly housed by Mr. Toad.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just kind of like, okay, we're going to go in, we're going to get in our honey pot, we're going to go. On the West Coast, it's in Critter Country. So it kind of fits a little bit more with the theme. So you've got a lot more foliage and kind of then you've got like the little like wood kind of shack building that you're going into. And then the honey bee, the honey comes out of the door and it's like, oh, like now we're going to get in this thing and go in this building. So I give them on to Disneyland. I think pretty much I really don't go on either of these that often. So I can't think of any like glaring differences on the actual ride, but
okay.
I give it to Disneyland.
Okay. All right. Let's talk Soarin'. This one I'm very interested to hear your guys' thoughts.
So again, ride system and ride almost identical, though you don't finish over Epcot in Disneyland, you finish over Disneyland. So there's that. I would give this one to Disneyland because the queue in Epcot is literally the worst queue maybe at Walt Disney World. It's just a hallway.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Versus at Disneyland, it's like an airplane hangar. So it's not like overly interactive or anything like that, but it has a specific theme that like you're getting on a plane and there's like plane memorabilia and things like that. So I would say Disneyland.
All right.
Yeah, this is one of the few areas of Disneyland that has survived the kind of 2.0 CCA makeovers. So this is in Condor Flats. And so again, the theming, everything around there as you're even walking up to the ride kind of is setting you up for the entrance into the hangar as Lucy, and then you walk down the slope, right? And it's kind of like when you get, at Disney World, when you get to the second touch point, and then you go down you can either go to the left, right, or down. That point when you go down, that's where you've got all of this really cool aviation and aerospace memorabilia and stuff hanging above you. It's just a really kind of sets the tone for the attraction. So I give it to Disneyland also.
All right. Next, and this one maybe should have.
Disneyland actually still for a few months of the year, sorry to interrupt you, Jeremy, brings back Soarin' over California.
Yeah.
Which
How
is kinda
does
cool.
that compare? Would you prefer that over Soarin' around the world?
Only because it was my first one that I ever
Yeah.
did. My first ride on Soarin' and my first few rides on Soarin'. The redo is really good.
I would
So
I would say I prefer Soarin' over California because I saw that obviously before they did the retheme in Walt Disney World, only because I felt like it mattered less where you sat on the ride for how the graphics looked.
Okay.
Versus, I mean, this
Great
one,
point.
if you're not in the middle, like that
Nope.
Eiffel Tower is curvy as all get out.
Right.
And Soarin' over California was not quite as
No.
drastic as far as where you were sitting and what you were seeing.
Okay. Yeah, moving on to the next one. This should have gone probably up earlier in my same but different, but we are going to put Tower of Terror versus Mission Breakout. Lucy?
So I don't ride Tower of Terror. It scares me. I have ridden it before, but it is not a typical must ride for me. I did ride Mission Breakout when we went to Disneyland the first time, and I took my niece went on it, and she had never really been to a theme park before, and I mistakenly thought that Guardians is kind of like Tower of Terror, and that you have a hot minute before you're going up and down. You do not have a hot minute on Mission Breakout.
Nope.
Like Rocket plugs that thing in and you were gone. And my poor niece, because she had not a second to prepare herself, like I thought we were both gonna die. I absolutely picked Mission Breakout. It is a fantastic retheme. I understand why people were upset to see Tower go in DCA, but like Mission Breakout is fantastic.
Okay. Now, Gary, I know you don't do Tower of Terror. Do you do Mission Breakout?
I have done each of them exactly once.
Once, okay.
And Tower of Terror I did on an every ride challenge, and I should have just said, you know what, I'm not going to finish this today, so I don't need to go on Tower of Terror. And then Mission Breakout I did because I did a fundraising challenge for Main Street 16 that I hit, and so I had to do it. And I don't like either of them. Lucy's exactly right. Like there is no like your vehicle doesn't move, it doesn't go through scenes, it goes back and it goes up. The other thing is because it's kind of like Rocket is kind of wreaking havoc and taking over, and it's you're helping them bust out of this thing. The ride vehicle bounces in each scene, so you kind of like hover, and you're kind of slowly gyrating up and down, and then all of a sudden you had to go up or down again, and it's just not a good feeling at all. That said, I would actually give this to Florida, because I will say, as much as I despise the Tower of Terror, it is one of, if not the best themed and queued attraction I've ever been on.
Yeah.
To the point that last year at MS16, I went through the queue with you guys just to go back through the queue and then take the chicken exit.
Oh yeah.
That's what I do. And they make fun of me too, and I don't care.
That's all part of it. It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's move on to Runaway Railway, which I know queue is going to be a major deciding factor in this one, and I'm guessing gives West Coast a major win, but maybe I'm wrong.
So I have, again, this is one I have not ridden in California, but I would say based on queue, and because I'm still personally a little bit bitter about the Great Movie Ride, I'm going to pick Disneyland. I love Runaway Railway. It's a great attraction. But its placement in Toontown and everything that's around it, I think it's kind of hard to beat.
Yeah.
Yep. The queue is just really, really perfect. I wish people would stop stealing things from it, and vandalizing it. But otherwise, the queue is just so good. Whereas in Florida, they basically just like, okay, we're just going to put this inside the Chinese theater and move on.
Yeah, throw a couple posters up and we're done.
Yeah, and the other thing is that Disneyland does have one small difference that Disney World does not have, but there is an Easter egg in every scene. There is a crab. Her name is Crustacea, and she appears in every room in the California version.
Interesting. Okay.
And I don't know what the relationship is. I don't know the backstory and why they only did it there and not in Florida, but she's in every scene. So it's just a
Interesting.
little kind of little tidbit nugget nod. You can try to find her in each scene.
Okay. I love it. Yeah, I may have to look up the history of that one then. Let's move on next to Peter Pan's flight.
For all intent and purpose to me, they're pretty identical. I would pick Walt Disney World.
Okay. What's
This is tough for
what's accessibility like compared to Disneyland, knowing that Walt Disney World wait times are skyrocketing as soon as the park opens? Is it similar to Disneyland, or it's pretty easy to access and ride?
No, it's much easier in Disneyland.
Okay.
But
it's easier in Disneyland, except that it does not have a lightning lane.
Ah,
And so it can get pretty hefty in the middle of the day. Beginning of the day, early in the day, and then later in the evening when Fantasyland kind of clears out. Um, you kind of have a little bit of an advantage there. But I mean, I'll tell you, a lot of ride challengers who do every ride at Disneyland actually start with Peter Pan,
okay.
like to get it out of the way. That's how much of a slog it can be. This is a tough one for me to choose because the queue is so much better in Florida
Yeah.
than in California. But I think that ride wise, the California ride is a lot better. Um, you fly through the star field in California, which you don't in Florida. You know, when you go to the second star to the right, there's just these, and this like 1955 effect of these tiny little like twinkle lights that you fly through and navigate, and it just kind of hits you like this three-dimensional kind of thing until you're in the next room and you're in Neverland. And then when you fly over Neverland, there's this cute little other touch that they have that Florida does not have. But when you fly over the mountains and the waterfalls in the lagoon, there's a rainbow. And the rainbow in the California version, which Walt Disney World does not have a rainbow over there, but the rainbow is actually the pansexual pride flag colors. It's yellow, blue, and red. It's pansexual. And
Got
so
it.
it's
Got
like
it.
a cool little like it's just a cool little like nod and just a neat little touch. The rest of the ride, like the kind of the culminating scenes of the ride, like the ship and the battle scene and everything, are basically, as Lucy said, exactly the same.
Okay.
So I think that I would actually give it to Walt Disney World, even though I think their ride is trash.
All right, we're getting into the big boys here now. And we're gonna go first with It's a Small World. Lucy, which coast would you pick for It's a Small World?
Oh, it's not even close.
No,
Yeah.
no.
I think Walt Disney World is in trouble for this last bit of our list.
Yeah.
Disneyland crushes Walt Disney World for It's a Small World.
Okay.
Right. It is a must ride for me in Disneyland, and it is almost a never ride for me in Walt Disney World.
Yeah. Wow.
The only thing that the Disney World version has going for it is the fact that the water is flooded in the room rather than the little kind of trough that you go through in the Disneyland version. Other than that, it's not even close. Disneyland has it's one of those things where when they announced that they were going to plus the ride and bring in some characters and people like lost their minds, and then it was like, well, look, Mary Blair like gave her blessing on this, like no, I'm sorry, Alice Davis like gave her blessing on this, and so they were kind of like, oh, and then they saw it was like, oh, this actually like it's pretty good, like it makes sense. And then just the facade alone is just not even close.
Yeah.
And when they decorate it for Christmas and you see them do the lighting ceremony on it, just go home, forget it, it's over.
All right, let's move on to one of my favorite rides in Walt Disney World and Magic Kingdom, Jungle Cruise.
I would say Walt Disney World.
Okay.
Even though they're remarkably similar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same.
They have enough small little similar small little differences rather that gives a nod, in my opinion, to Walt Disney World. Disneyland does not have the temple theme that
Mm-hmm.
you go through. That definitely, if you go through at night, just kind of adds that extra kind of little creepy factor to it. Um, Disneyland has the piranhas that Disney World does not have. But other than that, yeah, the Disney World, just the cue, the nod to the SEA, it just kind of takes it.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on to Space Mountain.
So I'm gonna have to give this one to Walt Disney World, and the only reason is because
Oh,
I have not ridden Space Mountain at Disneyland. So I want to be very clear that I'm sure that if I had, that's what I would give it to,
Okay.
because everybody says it's way better, and it doesn't make your entire body ache. So I would really like to. We just haven't gotten a chance to. Weights have been really high when we've
yeah.
been, but
Yeah.
Lucy, if you ever ride the Disneyland Space Mountain, you will never ride the Walt Disney World Space Mountain ever again.
all right, it's on the list.
It's it, it's it's a smoother ride. And then you've got the soundtrack, and they have your cars have the speakers right behind you. It's almost kind of like a rock and roller coaster
Nice.
system. And then the other thing that I like is that it's side by side
Hmm.
instead of the single file
Right.
Matterhorn kind of style car. And so you actually can sit next to somebody and go through the ride. It just feels a lot smoother because of that. You don't feel like you're going to fall out at any point. So yeah, Disneyland.
Okay. All right. Pirates of the Caribbean. That is next on our list. We just have a few more with attraction, so could be make or break a winner here.
At Disneyland all day.
Okay.
It's almost twice as long
Yeah.
as Walt Disney World's. Like I already mentioned, it goes by the Blue Bayou. I'm a huge fan of New Orleans. It's one of my favorite places in the whole world. So yeah, Disneyland all day.
Gary's agreeing.
Not not close.
Okay.
Not even close. Yep, all day. More scenes, just everything just about it. It's that ride. I said that Radiator Springs Racers is my favorite ride at DCA. This is my favorite ride in the entire state of California. It's
Okay.
perfection.
All right. Next we have Haunted Mansion. Saving that for basically last because there's a movie and maybe we'll get a sponsorship.
Also Disneyland.
Okay.
Again, the attraction is similar. They have the Hatbox Ghost in Disneyland, which I know is coming to Walt Disney World, but he's so cool. And again, the facade, it's also part of New Orleans Square. It's like an old antebellum mansion. I have not been for the theming for Halloween and Christmas when they do the Nightmare Before Christmas overlay, but even without that, I would still pick Disneyland. It's
Okay.
fantastic.
All right.
I was thinking about this and was like, because usually I tell people this is like the one ride that Disney World does better. And then when I rode it a couple weeks ago, I got off and I was like, I'm not so sure. And one of my favorite things, is that in Disneyland, the stretching room actually serves a purpose,
Yeah.
right? The stretching room at Disneyland is a legit elevator. So they figured we're going to make people go down and make it look like the room is going up. And whereas at Disney World, they're like, oh, that was a cool effect, so we'll just make the ceiling go up.
Yeah.
and let you walk through the next door. The Escher's Keep section is cool. Some of the other effects just felt like they didn't click as well at Walt Disney World. The floating candelabra, the endless hallway, just seemed like it was a little bit off. And so, yeah, I would, for all those other reasons, and as Lucy said, I would give this to Disneyland.
Okay. Not necessarily attraction, but inside a park, but it certainly could be considered one that they both have, which is the monorail, which serves a better purpose on which coast. Which one do you like better? Who takes the win on that one?
So both times I've been to Disneyland, the monorail has been closed for refurb.
Of course.
No.
So I have not had a chance to ride the Disneyland monorail. So I will pick Walt Disney World. But honestly, even if I will ride the Disneyland monorail someday, and I'm sure it's very magical, but I would still pick the Walt Disney World monorail because that's my childhood. Like that screams Disney trip to me. As I remember being a kid and calling out like monorail green and monorail pink and getting so excited when I got to ride the monorail. So I would pick Walt Disney World.
Okay. Gary?
This is tough for me because on our trip last year, my oldest and my youngest both love the monorails. They just love seeing them. Every time one goes overhead, they're pointing in there. And we stayed at Bay Lake Tower and we had a view of the monorail track. And I mean, all day long.
That's
Our
awesome.
youngest was just like, "Boom, there's another one. There's another one. She has a monorail dress, so with the Disney World monorails on it.
Yeah.
But the Mark 7 is such a cool vehicle. And the fact that it was the first operating monorail in the Western Hemisphere, like just the Disneyland, and it goes into the park
Yeah.
at Disneyland. And what's really cool about that then is that you kind of like get this really cool, it's like Epcot, right? It's like how, that cool view that you get as the monorail kind of circles Epcot, you get that at Disneyland, going through Tomorrowland, and it just feels like it fits with the theme, and it feels like it's got that purpose rather than just a mode of transportation.
Yeah.
Which before I was like, I would give this nod to Disneyland.
Okay. All right. Tallying some scores here. All right. Let's move on to overall. I'm going to lump characters into entertainment because I don't think it'd be fair to go characters against characters at all.
Wait, you missed an attraction.
Yes.
You missed an attraction, and I only know this because I was going to give it to Disneyland.
Okay.
Big Thunder Mountain Railroad.
Oh, yes. I totally skipped over that on accident.
Yep.
It's on my list. Yeah. Let's go Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. So Disneyland
all day.
Yeah.
They have the fiber optics inside for the dynamite. It's wilder. It's crazier.
Yep.
It's awesome. It's so awesome, and I love it in Walt Disney World. But yeah, it's better in Disneyland.
Okay.
Yep. I love both of them. It's probably my favorite roller coaster at Disneyland. It's Disneyland.
Okay.
The Boom Boom Room is so cool. That's a great effect. And it's wilder. Lucie's right. It's just a slightly better ride.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for catching that because I accidentally skipped over it. Well, let's talk overall entertainment. If you want to limp characters into that, we can. But entertainment, as far as shows within the theme parks, how do those compare? And which coast would you give the nod to?
So, are we including nighttime shows?
Sure. Let's include them all. Let's include any sort of form of that entertainment shows / characters.
Okay. So, a couple things that are really unfair to Walt Disney World because I love it so very much. And Illuminations might be my all-time favorite nighttime show ever. It's just very nostalgic for me.
Yeah.
But Walt Disney World really is going to get crushed by the fact that Rogers the Musical is playing now, and it's spectacular.
Oh, so jealous.
And I cried like a small child watching World of Color 1. It's phenomenal. I think it's probably, other than Illuminations, which holds nostalgia for me, my favorite Disney nighttime show I've ever seen.
Wow.
It's absolutely beautiful. Not a single firework enters the air, and it doesn't need it.
Wow.
It is absolutely amazing. So I would pick Disneyland.
Okay. Looks like Gary is in agreement there.
Fantasmic versus Fantasmic. Disneyland wins because it doesn't need the theater. It does it in a very organic spot right on the rivers of America, which is fantastic. Remember Dreams Come True, which was their fireworks show for the 50th, is still my favorite fireworks show I've ever seen in a Disney park. World of Color in multiple iterations is amazing. World of Color 1 is just beautiful. I unfortunately missed Rogers the Musical. It wasn't out when we went yet, so we didn't get to catch that. But then if you talk characters, it's just the organic feeling of the characters and how they interact in their, both with the guests but also in their space, is just so cool at Disneyland. I've got tons of stories about that from trips over years where it's just you walk around the corner, oh my gosh, there's there's Mary Poppins.
That's so cool.
And then Main Street Electrical Parade. Just, I mean, I know it's not there right now, but it still lives there in my heart, and I am mad at everything that's happened at Epcot since Illuminations went away. So Harmonious wasn't terrible, but Epcot, as I call it, Epcot for never, is trash.
Yeah. I can actually agree with those. All right, we have a couple more categories left. I want to talk technology, and we'll kind of put together the overall app on each coast and how you use Genie Plus and individual Lightning Lane. Or do you see vast differences in which one reigns supreme as far as usability, accessing it, costs, all of that stuff? Would you rather have to use the app in Genie Plus and Lightning Lane in Disney World or Disneyland?
So this one's a little unfair, I think, for me to vote on because I used Genie Plus and individual Lightning Lane in Disneyland because I was on a vacation,
Yeah.
as opposed to I go to Walt Disney World so often that I rarely need to use them because if I don't ride something, I ride it next time.
Right.
Versus I'm going to California once a year. So if I want to do something, I need to make sure that I get it done. I will say because there seems to be a much higher concentration of attractions in Disneyland, I found Genie Plus to be easier to use there because there are so many attractions. So getting times the day that we did it was pretty simple. I think MDE's for me was about the same. That one would almost be a wash. I didn't find one easier than the other, but I thought it was easier for me to navigate and get what I wanted in with Genie Plus and Disneyland than
Okay.
it was the times I've tried at Disney World.
Okay.
I think the other thing is that they actually, because they operate differently, I prefer the Disneyland model. There are definitely, even though you have, as Lucy mentioned, that higher concentration of rides, there are more rides at Disneyland that do not have the Lightning Lane option.
Mm-hmm.
But there are still tons that do. It's just the fact that in Disneyland 2 parks, it has more rides than the 4 parks at Walt Disney World combined. So you just have such a higher concentration to kind of that you can go from place to place. The main difference is though is that there's no midnight purchase. There's no 7 a.m. because you cannot purchase Genie Plus and you cannot book a Lightning Lane until you are in the park.
Ah.
Um, and so it's a level playing field for everybody basically, except for the people who rope drop, right? So the earlier you get there, the better pick of things that you have. But there's no, waking up at 6:45 to get your 7 a.m. and then decide what you're going to do. And the other thing is the individual Lightning lanes actually book out as a time slot rather than a purchase time. So that's actually one thing that I like better about Walt Disney World version. Like if you want to ride Rise of the Resistance, for example, and you want to ride it at 7 o'clock, you have to wait until the time bounces out to 7 o'clock to buy your Lightning lane. You can't say like at 11 a.m. I want to ride tonight at 7. I'm going to buy it right now.
Gotcha.
So that's one kind of annoying thing. Now that said, if you say like, well, I actually want to ride it right now, you can and be like, oh, and the time is right now. I'll just pay $15 and jump on the ride.
Yeah.
And so for that, I think it's got pluses and minuses, but I do like the not having to do the midnight and all that garbage.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a huge benefit. The one thing I will say about Disneyland not having as many Genie Plus or Lightning Lane options is that if you utilize DAS, it's still an option for you. It just makes it a little bit clunkier on the rides that don't have the Lightning Lane option because there's no separate queue, and so it makes that you can still do it, and they're not going to tell you like, sorry, like you're out of luck because we don't have a Lightning Lane for this ride. It just makes it a little bit murkier and messier to navigate that, but you can still do it.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I'll say a note on that because I utilize DAS in Disneyland, which is Disability Access Service for anybody that does not know. I have generalized anxiety disorder, so that's something that I use to not have to wait in queue. And one thing that I think is really cool about Disneyland is even your individual Lightning Lane purchase attractions are eligible for DAS at Disneyland.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So whereas at Walt Disney World, you cannot get a DAS return time for Remy or Cosmic Rewind or Flight of Passage. You can at Disneyland. I utilized it for Radiator Springs Racers, which is typically one that you would have to do an individual Lightning Lane for.
Right.
It's eligible for every attraction that utilizes Genie Plus. So that I think is a pretty big benefit to be able to not have to worry about that.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to move on next to overall ambiance and theming. Do you see a major difference outside again of the sheer size of Disney World compared to Disneyland, which obviously can offer more. And maybe theming isn't as much as we want to focus on, but ambiance, that feel of I guess I could almost, the much smaller park. Does that give you a better feel and sense of, everything that's over in Disneyland compared to it being so vast in Disney World? Is there one that you like particularly better than the other? And that may include getting around. That may include accessibility, kind of that overall feel that you get, because people tell me how different it is in Disneyland compared to Walt Disney World.
So if we could do a point for each, one for ambiance,
Okay.
one for theming,
Yeah.
I would give the point for ambiance to Disneyland.
Okay.
It just feels different. Like there's not really a great way to describe it because it's so much more accessible. It is smaller. Two parks are right across from each other. It's so easy to go from one to the other. You could go to Disneyland and pick up a snack and then go back to California Adventure and ride rides, and it would take you less time than it does to get from one end of the World Showcase to the other. It's that close together. So ambiance, I mean, I told the story when we did our trip last year, but the first time we walked onto Main Street in Disneyland, the Dapper Dans came around the corner and sang "It's a Jolly Holiday" with Mary, and I cried. Like, you just can't. It is Walt Disney, quintessentially. So yeah, ambiance I would give to Disneyland all day. Theming I would give to Walt Disney World.
Okay.
I think the World Showcase is a singularly unique theme park experience. Animal Kingdom is a singularly unique theme park experience. The theming that's gone into them is meticulous and beautiful and very, very specific. So that I would give to Walt Disney World. But yeah, ambiance has got to be Disneyland for me.
Okay. Gary, thoughts?
When you walk onto Main Street, there is nothing else like it. And especially when you are there at dusk or at night and the lights start to come on and the music is playing and you look up at the window above the fire station and you see the lamp is on in the window and Walt is there and you're just like, things are okay. It's a warm hug. It's everything. It is, you look at a light bulb and you're like, that light bulb is there because Walt wanted that light bulb there.
Yeah.
The red, I don't know if everyone knows the story of the red and white light bulb at the Coca-Cola corner, where Walt Disney was basically like, this looks silly to have two red or two white in a row. We have to fix this. And so they actually have a light bulb that's painted half red and half white, so that it keeps the pattern of the chaser lights okay. And so you see things like that and you're like, oh, this, just knowing that Walt Disney walked there, that ambiance, if you're a Disney nerd and you're a Disney, whatever noun you want to put after it, it takes the cake. The original California Adventure, which I experienced in 2006, was hot garbage. And they were doing a really good job of retheming that park. They kept the things that really worked. They got rid of the things that really did not. But that said, there's still just that feeling where it's like, this is just kind of like if you take like the Cars Land and the Avengers Campus, and then you're like, okay, what really is the rest of it?
It's a little hodgepodgey.
It's still a little hodgepodgey, absolutely. And so I agree. Like, to be in World Showcase and to be in Toy Story Land and and Pandora and just all of Animal Kingdom, right? It just hit different. And it's just really, really cool. It really is.
Okay. All right. I love it. Those are great answers. Let's move on and let me know if you notice a big difference in cast members between each coast. And I know, Lucie, this will probably be a tough one for you because, I mean, I know both of us, we've made a lot of wonderful lifelong friends that are cast members in Disney World. But if you were able to set that aside, I'm thinking more of just say your day-to-day interactions while you're on vacation, whether you're going to, lunch or dinner, or you're being greeted at a ride or at the front of the park. Do you notice a major difference in the way that cast members are on each of the coasts?
I don't notice a major difference. Service is second to none at any Disney theme park. Every cast member is going to greet you with the same joy, Same level of service is really high. With that being said, because I don't see a market difference, I would pick Walt Disney World because, yes, I do have some very special friends that are cast members at Walt Disney World. But no, the level of service is exceptional at both.
Okay. Gary, thoughts?
I feel like the only thing I don't really know that I could, because I actually have friends who work at both parks, so I don't know that I could not get in trouble by picking people here. Um, but with Disneyland, because Disneyland, kind of has that like unofficial like designation that it's a quote unquote local park, right? Even though it's the Disneyland park is still the second most visited theme park in the world, year after year, right behind Magic Kingdom. Um, it you do get a lot of younger people who are doing summer jobs or other kind of or you have the cast members who like knew Walt Disney, right? And like work there opening day,
Yeah.
right? And whereas at Disney World, you just have the largest single site employer in the state of Florida, right? I mean, it's just you get so many people from so many different countries and and really, if you look at the name tags, right? Like you look at Walt Disney World, and it's like everywhere you look, there's a different city, there's a different state, there's a different country, and when you walk around
Mm-hmm.
Disneyland, it's like Los Angeles, San Diego,
Mm-hmm.
Anaheim, and there's just a lot of just local people, and there's nothing good or bad about that. And I don't really know that it gives it because they are all Disney cast members and because they all give service as their top priority. There's not really a difference. And I don't. It just sometimes might give it a little bit of a different feel. Um, I've never felt like, man, like the Disneyland cast members just need to step up their game, or like, why are all the Disney World, like, why are all the Pandora cast members so cranky? Like, I've never felt like either of those, and just be like, oh, well, this, I don't want to come here anymore because the cast members on the other coast are so much better.
Yeah.
They're all exemplary. There is just a little bit of that different feel, but not good or bad.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to weather. Which park would you prefer overall for year round? We'll say weather. Now, Lucy, both of your times have been in the summer, which I think I know your vote.
Both of my times have been in the summer when California has been experiencing excessive heat waves, to the point where people were really mad at us because they said we brought it from Florida.
Yep.
And that still didn't change the fact that at night it was down to 65.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take Disneyland all day long.
That's what I figured, especially when today's feel like here, and this was in St. Augustine, was 113 degrees. So I can only imagine what Animal Kingdom was today. Probably hitting 120 or so. What do you think, Gary? Because you've been to Disneyland then year round and Disney World year round, correct?
Yep. I've been at different seasons, different times. The only thing I will say, one time we went to Disneyland in February and it was rainy and we were kind of like, oh, this is actually kind of like not that fun. Like we're a little bit uncomfortable. But then there was a year that we went to marathon weekend, and my brother was running the 5K, and I got up to go watch, and I had 4 layers of clothes on because that's how cold it was in Orlando at 4 in the morning.
Yeah.
In January, and I was like, this is garbage. Like this is ridiculous. I don't want to do this ever again. I also don't, having now just done it for the second time, I don't want to do Orlando in July ever again.
Yeah.
And so I am going to give them out to Anaheim.
Okay. All right. We have one more. Again, I know it can be difficult, especially as an annual pass holder, someone who visits often like Lucy. Do you feel overall, though, that either of the coasts has a better bang for your buck or cost? And that's taking out any sort of travel, obviously flying across country or halfway across the country, anything like that. But once you're there on property, do you feel that one or the other has a better cost and bang for your buck for it?
Even though California is more expensive, and I will say it is more expensive. I can tell you for a fact, like drinks, food, everything, even though Walt Disney World is certainly not cheap, being in California, it is more expensive. But because of accessibility for both parks, I would probably pick Disneyland because you could do really, if you did park open to park close in 2 days, in theory, you could probably hit pretty much everything that you want to see.
Yeah.
In 3 days, you could definitely hit everything that you want to do. And Walt Disney World, you could stay 3
Not
weeks
even
and still
close.
not see everything.
Yep. Right.
So yeah, I would say just for that ability to really, if you're talking bang for your buck, I would say Disneyland.
Okay. Gary?
The one thing I will say that adds to the value for me is that the trip just requires a lot less pre-planning.
Mm.
And so for the money that you're spending, even though you're still going to spend a lot of it, regardless of which coast you go to, like you don't have the added pressure of the 60-day wake up and the everything else, and it's just a lot easier to navigate while you're there. The park hopper, for people who ask me like, oh, should I get hoppers? If you're going to Florida, it's a calculation, and I feel like what do your kids like to get up early? Do you like to get up early? Do you who are you going with? Who's your traveling party? And then you can look at spending 2 or 3 hours total hopping, depending on how much you hop and what you want to do in a day. Whereas, like Lucy said, I tell everybody who goes to Disneyland, get hoppers. Like, unless you're going for a week and you can dedicate, you're like, oh, today's going to be like a slow Disneyland day. Like, if you're going for 3 days, get hoppers.
Yeah.
If you're going for 4 days, get hoppers. Like, no question. Especially because I tell them, don't stay on property. Stay off property, save some money there, get hoppers, and go.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, this concludes our battle. Would you guys like to know the final tally? It wasn't close in the end.
Oh no.
Yeah, I mean, Disneyland, we had a total of 39 points versus Disney World's 24 points. Now, shockingly enough, it didn't really come down as much to the attractions because Disneyland only beat out Disney World there by a score of 20-16. So that wasn't a huge difference. What it really came down was the end was technology, entertainment, and characters, ambiance, the weather, the cost, and whether it was worth your bang for the buck. And then, of course, when we go back to dining, that was a 5-1 win for Disneyland. Yeah. So those were I really thought that this whole thing was going to be decided by the attractions and pitting those against each other as kind of an outsider to Disneyland. So that was super interesting to see and go through. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. This was a fun, I like discussing Disneyland because we haven't been there yet. We're hoping to get there in 2024, but I learn a lot every time we have these kind of conversations with, folks like you all who have gotten to go there. So I am hoping that very soon, maybe I'll have you guys on and we'll do this again after I've actually been to Disneyland, and then we'll see what happens.
Absolutely.
We'll see what my thoughts are. So that would be super fun, but I appreciate you guys very much for coming on. This was a lot of fun, and I'm sure people will be hearing from both of you very, very soon, especially as we start to gear up for Main Street 16 next year. And we're still finalizing enough details to make some major announcements, but those will be coming soon. So everybody, please keep an eye on mainstreet16.com. Again, Lucy, thank you so much. Gary, thank you for coming on, and I look forward to talking to you guys really soon.
Always a pleasure.
Thanks so much. Have a great one.
Thank you all for listening. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. And as always, we would love to hear your thoughts when we post this out to social media. You can find us on all major social media channels at MainSTMagic, or check us out on our very new website at mainstmagic.com. If you go ahead and hit that subscribe button, get brand new episodes every Tuesday and Friday. And Rhonda will be back for Friday's episode for our latest trip review of camper rental adventures over at Fort Wilderness Resort. And as always, as long as you're out there on the internet, you're checking out iTunes and all that good stuff, we would absolutely be so thankful if you could please leave us a rating and review. Because if Rhonda was here, she'd let you know it helps our show grow. That's all we've got. We'll see you real soon.
Jeremy and Rhonda are more than a little fond of Disney World, so they made this podcast to share it all with you. Reports and resorts, top 10 lists of all sorts. Main Street Magic's bringing it home for you.